All right, everyone, it's Mike here from The Art of Guitar. I'm back with another brutally honest concert review video. This one's a fun one. What's funny, though, is I didn't think I was actually going to do a review for this concert going into it. I thought, Metallica's coming up later this month, and I'm for sure going to do a video about that. So I thought maybe I'll just take this one off. But so many crazy and fun things happened, and it was an amazing show. I wanted to talk about it, so I decided let's go for it. Now, what's weird is a couple days ago, I was actually doing a video about a 13-year-old Derek Trucks back in the day, 1993, opening for the Allman Brothers. And in part of his concert set, he actually does this dueling guitar thing with his other guitar player who's a full-fledged adult professional. And it was so crazy to see how well Derek did against a pro like that. He held his own and he even outshined the guy in a few instances. Well, I released the video for like 2 hours and then I realized I got a couple things wrong about the facts and I felt bad that I threw the other guy kind of under the bus. I guess you could say under the truck in this case. So I decided to ditch that video. But shortly afterwards, I noticed on my feed that it said Derek Trucks was coming to town. So it was going to be the Tedeschi Trucks band. And I thought this is going to be great because I was just doing a video about this kid and now he's grown up and I'm going to be able to see him in concert in a couple days. It was coming up quick. Derek really influenced me. Ever since I saw that video a long time ago, I got really into slide guitar. And I thought, man, if I could make my guitar talk like that, because when he plays, it's almost like a gospel singer is coming through his guitar playing. If you've ever heard him, you know what I'm talking about. And he even sat down once with B.B. King and played, and B.B.'s like, yeah, I think that's the best I ever heard it before.
That's about as good as I've ever heard it. That's a big time.
So I jumped on Ticketmaster and I was able to find a really great seat. It was last minute, so I wasn't going to ask anybody to come with me. I was just going to grab a ticket and go myself. And what's funny is sometimes when you only want one ticket, you get the best seats ever. And in this case, it was second row from the stage, right smack dab in the middle. Sometimes it pays to be a loner. I think it was about $160, but it was worth it to me to pay that much for a ticket because I guess after Taylor Swift, everything seems cheap. But to be able to see Derek Trucks that up close and personal, I thought would be worth 3 times that much. On the ticket, it said Tedeschi Trucks with special guest. I thought it said Mango Price. I thought that must be some kind of psychedelic hippie band or something. It just sounds like it, like somebody who would open for Rusted Root or Fish or something. So I tried to look them up on YouTube and I couldn't find any band called Mango Price. So I just gave up and I was like, I'll just hear him at the show. It's okay. Show day came up really fast. Like I said, it was kind of last minute. And I was at my studio and right before I was going to go to the concert, I looked over and I saw my white SG. I saw it sitting there and I thought, how cool would that be if somehow I could get Derek Trucks to sign my guitar? Because back when he was 13 years old and he had his red SG, I saw there was a couple signatures on that one. I thought that would be really cool to have his signature on my SG. But I didn't want to bring my whole guitar, so I took the pickguard off, which is a really good move because bringing a whole guitar to a concert is very cumbersome and they probably won't allow it. So let me grab it. I'm going to show you it's not that big when you take it off of an SG. So here's what it looks like when it's taken off. See, it's not that big at all. Isn't that crazy? Really makes my SG look naked though, doesn't it? I knew my chances of getting a signature were really slim, but I thought, man, if that opportunity presented itself and I had nothing for him to sign except for maybe my boob or something, it just would really leave me with a bad feeling. So I put the pickguard in my back pocket and it actually fit pretty nice. It felt weird when I sat down. It poked me a little bit in the buns, but it was worth the sacrifice. I raced to the venue and I got there with about 5 minutes to spare. Doors were at 6, the show was at 7, and I show up at about 6:53 or so. And I get there and I have to do the whole routine. They make you take your belt off now when you go through the metal detector. And I took everything out of my pockets, or at least I thought I did. I walked through the metal detector, nothing went off. And the pants I was wearing were really loose. So after I took my belt off, my pants started falling down. So I kind of had to waddle to get to the other side of the wall. And here I am putting my belt on, pulling my pants up in front of everybody in the lobby. It was kind of embarrassing. But as I pulled my pants up, I felt the pickguard. It was still in my back pocket. And I thought, you know what? This thing is kind of sharp and dangerous, and I just walked right through with it because it's not made out of metal. And yeah, it's hard to think of a pickguard as a deadly weapon, but like George Carlin said, even a rolled up newspaper can be a deadly weapon if you're committed enough. So the opening act was starting up. I could hear them as soon as I walked through the door. Couldn't have been timed any better. And it's not Mango Price, by the way. It's a girl named Margo Price. So Yeah. Right when they kicked in, I was transported to like late 80s, early 90s country slash kind of rootsy Americana type sounds, and I was really digging it right off the bat. I've never heard one note from this group, and I already started to like them right away. One thing I noticed is that her voice cut through really well through the mix. The mix sounded really good, but her voice stood out. It just, I don't know, it's just this certain timbre. It's got like this Dolly Parton sweetness to it, mixed with a little bit of grit. Kind of like if you ever heard the Dottie character from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, that actress sing. Got a little bit of gravel in the voice. If you picture those two together, that's kind of the sound I was getting from her, with a little bit of a touch of, I would say, Jewel as well. Even though I had tickets to be way up front, I didn't want to mess with it at this point. I was just like, you know what, I'm going to stand back, especially because I don't know the band too well, and I'm going to just take in the atmosphere, you know, appreciate having a lot of space in the general admission area for now. People were coming in, but it was still in the process of filling up. Like I often do at shows, I decided to grab a drink, and I always start off with a double jack and see how far that gets me. Came to $36. You know, I always talk about the price of things at concerts, but that seems a little bit crazy. Now, on the other side, that keeps people from drinking too much, which is good, or as they say in Minnesota, being overserved. Yeah, that'll curb your habit quick, having to pay almost $40 for a double jack. Anyway, I grabbed my drink, I stood behind the soundboard, and I was just really enjoying the depth of the sound. It was huge sounding. If you watch my other review where I talked about the Judas Priest concert that was at the same venue, the Armory, I talked about how Priest sounded kind of boxy and not very big, and that's Judas frickin' Priest, you know? And here's Margo Price, a country band with some Americana influence in there somewhere, sounding gigantic. So I just thought this is so funny how it's almost the opposite of what I would have expected. Not only was the sound great for Margo Price, but you know, just the atmosphere was really cool. I looked around and everybody was having a great time. It was starting to really fill up, and I thought this is great because it's a 2-day thing. Basically, they're playing 2 nights in a row, and it's so cool to see all these people coming to shows like this. You know, it was a Friday, so I think that helped a lot of people feel good because they didn't have to wake up for work tomorrow. So everybody was in a pretty good mood, and the whole thing just had a great vibe. The lights on stage were excellent. They were decorating her set. The one thing I would say is I couldn't really see a lot of their faces too well. And later on, I think I ran into the guitar player outside, but I'm not sure because I couldn't really see him when he was on stage. I think the front lighting was a little bit subdued because when Trucks and Tedeschi came out, it was bright. So I think maybe it's just an opening act thing. They just wanted to keep everything dimmed to maybe 60% or something. So I'm looking around. I noticed the merch tables behind me. I always like to get a t-shirt from every show, especially if I'm going to do a review. At this point, though, like I said, I wasn't even sure I was going to do a review for this one. But yeah, things kept happening. So I went up to pick up this shirt, and as I was paying for it, I hear, "Hey, you're the YouTube dude," or whatever. And I look, and the other guy selling shirts, he knew me, so he came up and we were talking a little bit. I turn around, and the guy who was selling me this shirt already kind of closed out the sale. You know, like I used my card and everything, but he didn't want a tip. And I go, "Man, I wanted to give you a tip." He's like, "No, man, you covered us last time. It's cool." And once again, I thought it's so funny that when I go get a drink, I end up paying like $6 for a tip, and I don't really want to. And when I want to give a tip for this t-shirt guy, they don't let me do it. It's this weird irony that keeps happening. I was really falling in love with Margo's voice, and I thought she sounds a little bit in this particular song, like Stevie Nicks. And I thought, man, this band could do a killer version of like Gold Dust Woman. I don't know if you guys are going to see this video, but consider playing Gold Dust Woman. I bet she'll bring the house down with that one. Her band was very top-notch and mature. They all seem pretty young, so that's cool to see. But sometimes when a band is very mature or very disciplined, they tend to play their parts and leave room for the main part of the band, which is Margo. And they did a good job of that. But there are times when I want somebody to just start kicking ass. Maybe it's the metalhead, the rocker in me that just loves when somebody just goes for it. But sometimes these bands are a little too laid back, a little too subdued. But just as soon as I thought that in my head, all of a sudden this ripping guitar solo came out of nowhere. And it wasn't like he was just playing in the background. The sound tech turned him up and all of a sudden, bam, I was getting licks to my face. That sounds weird. And it felt appropriate. You know, a young band with full of energy. Once in a while, you just got to feel that, you know, that real burst every once in a while. Sometimes it's easy to forget a band. If everybody's too controlled, You go home and you go, yeah, nothing really stood out about that. The music was good, but it turns into background music if someone doesn't step up once in a while. Speaking of the guitar player, I thought it was kind of funny because I heard him playing slide guitar, and I thought that's got to be so intimidating to play slide, knowing that the master of slide, Derek Trucks, is like backstage or even watching you play. I feel like that would totally screw with my head. Speaking of doing memorable things, I think it was the second to last tune. Margo goes and grabs a whole bunch of white roses. I think they were roses. And she starts throwing them out into the audience. And I thought, if anything, people are going to remember this. Like, oh, that was the band that threw out the flowers. You know, a good memory peg. But I kept thinking, I hope they took the thorns off of those things. I think they were roses. Could you imagine catching a thorn with your hand or your eye? Even worse. But I'm sure they thought of that. Margo Price is getting done at 8 o'clock sharp. It's like everything is so rigidly timed these days. So she started right at 7, got done right at 8, a solid 60 minutes. It was perfect. Kind of funny because she never said like, good night, Minneapolis or anything. They just kind of stopped. And then everyone looked around like, are they going to keep playing or what's going on? And then the lights came on. So it's one of those kind of awkward endings to a set. And it probably would have been better if she would have like given us a clue that it was the end of the set. But whatever, I'm just nitpicking at this point. So I sat back and I waited till I saw some people leaving. And I thought, okay, now's the time to go grab my chair. I finally found my seat, and sitting next to my seat was this girl who was really cool, by the way. It felt a little awkward because we were sitting together and then there was like nobody for a couple chairs next to us. And I'm just like, hi, I don't want this to be awkward, but just saying hi. And she was really friendly, and we actually got along really well. It was cool. It's like I made a new friend at a concert, and she told me how she's been to Red Rock. She had all these really cool stories, and I thought that's sweet. So I told her that I was doing a review of the concert, and that was kind of my weird roundabout way of telling her about my YouTube channel. And then I think she subscribed on the spot. I'm not really sure, but yeah, that was cool to meet somebody you could actually talk to, especially since I went to the show all by myself. Now the crew was busy getting the stage ready for Tedeschi and Trucks, and man, they brought out all these boutique amps. I've been playing guitar a long time, and I still wasn't able to really identify most of the amps that were on the stage. They also had 2 drum sets set up, which is really cool, and then the roadies brought out all these really huge, clear-looking music stands, and they put them around the drum set. And I couldn't really figure out what was going on. At first, I thought maybe it was like a teleprompter type thing, you know, like how presidential candidates kind of look at those clear-looking things and it gives them the words. What I think they really were sound blocking devices, kind of like if you put a drummer inside of a plexiglass type cage type thing. That has its downfall, though. If you've ever played in one of those before, you feel really isolated from the band. It's a strange feeling. So I think to mitigate that, they just use these clear stands, and they seem to do the job. I've never seen those before. And before I knew it, the band walks out on stage, real casually, by the way. And it's funny because Derek never really dresses up for the stage. If you ever see footage of him, I don't think I've ever seen him in like anything fancy. He always looks to me like he just got done putting together a train set, like a model train set or something. He's got that model train set energy. And when he comes out with his guitar, it kind of looks like he was interrupted from doing that. Now, okay, I got to play a show, I guess. So they walk out, huge applause. The place is like packed by this time and just really loud. It's really interesting being way up front and hearing the crowd versus being way in the back and hearing it. It's such a big difference. It's like you can feel the energy hitting the back of you, you know, if you're way up front like that. Now, I have to admit, I'm a bit of a poser when it comes to their songs. I don't know a ton of them. I've heard them, but it's not like I put it on repeat and have memorized all of them. Really, the entire time, I was mostly transfixed on the musicianship and mostly on Derek's playing, just because, you know, I always want to just fixate on what he's doing at all times and try to pick up any little thing I could get from his playing. It's like if I can glean one little technique that I missed before, I'll do it, especially when I'm this close to him. Must have looked creepy, like I was just sitting there staring at his fingers the whole time. And that's not to take away from the rest of the band. I love Susan's voice. Like when I hear it, I think of like Bonnie Raitt. It's that smooth, but can be a little bit gritty and soulful and bluesy sound. And I love her range because she doesn't go super high, but she can go pretty high. But she keeps it kind of in this comfort zone where it feels really good to hear her sing. And when I thought of Bonnie Raitt, it reminded me that Bonnie is an incredible slide player. So it's kind of like Bonnie Raitt is Tedeschi and Trucks in one body. That blew my mind when that hit me. And I counted, I may have been off by one, but I counted an 11-piece band altogether. So they had horn players, they had like a choir type thing in the background with 3 people, not really a choir, but and then you had 2 drummers, like I said, a bass player, you had, you know, Tedeschi Trucks, obviously, and did I say keyboard player already? And what was really cool is the keyboard player was playing on actual Leslie. I recorded it spinning, as proof that he's using the real deal, not a plug-in or anything like that. And looking at him, he reminded me of two people. I always compare things, I know, but he reminded me of like John Cougar Mellencamp meets like Morrissey. And I kept laughing to myself, and I was wondering if the girl sitting next to me was wondering if I was on something, because I just kept thinking, John Cougar Morrissey. And by the way, as a drummer, I was obsessed with how these two drummers were going to work together, because I've only seen, I think, one band have two drummers. It was when Live came to town a while back, and they had two drummers for some reason. And I like to watch how they play off each other. Sometimes they're playing at the same time, they're in sync. And I was waiting for flam sounds, where two hits don't exactly hit at the same time, but these guys were locked in like crazy. Sometimes one of the drummers would play percussion and still hit the snare. And I have a whole new appreciation, by the way, for bands that have two drummers that do it this way, that could play so well together. It just opens up a whole nother dimension to the rhythm possibilities. So I'm now a fan of that idea. Although I don't think I would ever play with two drummers. I know a lot of drummers, and no offense, I think I could only handle one in my band at a time. One thing I really wish I could have heard better where I was sitting was the bass guitar, but when you're sitting that close to the stage, you can't be picky about what you can hear. Usually an amp is pointing right at you, directly at you, and you hear a lot of that. It's real hard to get a balanced mix being that close to the stage. That's why sometimes I actually prefer being back a little ways. That way you're back far enough so you can hear the PA speakers working at their full potential. I'd have to say the highlight of their whole set was when they kicked into this song. I had no idea what it was at first, but as soon as they brought the singer from the back, it was this guy singer, he started singing the first couple of lyrics. I'm like, oh my God, they're playing Prince. This time 2000, felt like I went into a trance. It's funny because I'm always chasing that feeling when I go see shows, but it usually doesn't happen. I found myself forgetting I was at a concert. I just became like one with the music. I know that sounds cheesy and stuff, but it was like this mind meld with the band and the music. And it was just this pulse that kept happening. I felt seriously like I was in a trance. It was great. And of course, the hometown crowd loved that they played a Prince song and did it in their own fashion. And one thing that I was hoping is that they don't only do that here because it's Minnesota with Prince. I was hoping they actually play this in different states because, man, I know people will appreciate it. After the song got done, I actually had to shake my head a little bit to get back into reality. That's how gone I was. A big part of getting entranced by that song was being so close to the band. I truly believe that. But I thought the trade-off for the sound is not worth it for me right now. So I'm going to do something crazy. I know I have this great seat, but I'm actually going to get up and go back a little bit and watch the band from maybe the midway point. So I felt kind of bad, but I shook my friend's hand. I was like, nice to meet you. And I got up to leave and I thought, you know what? I'm going to piss all these people off trying to get to the side, but I won't come back. So I won't upset them a second time at least. So I went the other way. I went down about 8 chairs and I noticed that there was 2 open front seats in the front row. So I just like scissor kicked, high jumped over those seats. And then I was able to just walk clearly to the side and back. And by the way, they had security there, but they were super cool. The guys that were up in front of the stage, they didn't give me any grief. They knew what I was trying to do, and they just kept a good eye on everybody, but they never had to like strong arm anybody. Everybody at the show was really cool. So I was really appreciating the fact that these security guards were really chill. You'll see why later. So now I'm towards the left side of everything. I went back about halfway and all of a sudden the full sound hit me and I'm like, okay, there's the bass guitar. Now I can hear it and feel it. It was really cool. And their light show was amazing. I couldn't really see it from way up front, so I'm glad I went back a little ways. They stuck to the script, they went from song to song to song, but there was this one time where they started to jam and I thought, man, if any band could jam out, it's these guys, and I really hope they do. Well, Derek turns around to one of the horn players and they kind of go back and forth and it got really weird in a good way. Suddenly it went from this real formulaic song by song by song to this jam that kind of felt like a Miles Davis Bitches Brew type thing. Like anything goes. And I think the show really needed that because it really felt straightforward. They have great songs and of course his playing is mind-blowing. But once in a while you want to hear weirdness. You can get really weird with a slide. It's real easy to get, Middle Eastern sounding. He was doing these really exotic sounding licks. And and he was pedal toning it with his low string. It was really cool sounding. The guitar player in me wanted to hear like an hour of this stuff. During the trippy stuff, part of me was thinking, man, I wish I had more than just this whiskey coursing through my veins right now. You know, it'd be one trippy moment. But I thought it's probably better that I just had a drink and I'm good, you know. I reached back and I felt the pickguard was still in my pocket. I got a little bit nervous. And I'm like, okay, now the next goal of mine is to somehow get this to Derek Trucks. I didn't want to get greedy or push my luck, you know, even if I handed it to the roadie and he mailed it to me like a month from now. I don't care. As long as I get the signature, I'd be super happy with that. So I had to leave a little bit early because my plan was to hang out where the band comes out at the end of the show. We used to do this all the time back in the day. You'd go see your favorite band, and afterwards you'd hang out kind of where the buses are, and the band might come out, they might not, but if they do, you can sometimes say hey, hi to them or watch them walk by, take a picture. And in this case, I was hoping maybe to catch Derek's ear and ask him if I can get a signature. So I walked around the venue and I got to the back area where I saw the tour buses. And I'm actually going to put up like kind of a cheesy diagram so that I can explain all this, because this is when things got a little bit more interesting for me. So I'm outside. It's real calm. It's a warm Minnesota night. You know, I just got out from this loud concert and everything just seemed really calm and peaceful. So they had this whole area fenced off. And they had the buses, and I saw where the back door was going to be and all that kind of stuff. And so I just kind of sat near the corner of the fence, you know. I just thought, this is kind of nice. I'm just going to chill, relax a little bit. There was like a police car there too. So I felt pretty safe. Everything was good. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the peace was broken by some guy yelling at me. I hear, hey, you, get out of here. Scram! And at first I thought maybe it was some guy yelling at like a poor old mangy dog that wouldn't go away, you know, just telling it to get out of here. But as I turn around, I noticed he was looking and pointing right at me. He was this like larger security guard, and he's like, I said, get out of here, leave. And this is the kind of thing that I don't have much patience for. But he surprised me because it came out of nowhere, that my first instinct was just to be like, okay, see you later. And I started walking away. As I was walking, so I was going to just circle the building, find my truck and go home. You know, I thought, well, I tried. What just happened kept going through my head. It kept playing like a movie. And I got more and more angry with each step that I took.
And I became unglued. Slowly I turned.
And I just kept seeing his face, you know, when he's pointing at me going, you, get out of here. And I thought, what right does this guy have to talk to me that way, first of all? Second of all, I was on the sidewalk. I'm outside of the perimeter that they had a fence for. So I was perfectly in the right. I could stand there all night if I wanted to. He had no right to tell me to leave that area. So I was kind of fuming inside. And I'm at this phase in my life now where something in my brain just says, you know what? Fuck that guy. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let this guy ruin my night, you know? So I just went full circle all the way around the building. It's kind of fun. Got to see a lot of cool things. Ended up right back to that fence area. This time, though, I stood further back and on the other side. So I was in the corner area, but I was far enough away to where I didn't even know if he could see me. So now I'm behind the cop car that had 2 cops in it, by the way. And I'm just standing there. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to wait. The band is almost done. And if the band walks through, I'm going to take my chance and, you know, try to say hi to Derek or somebody. And if they don't, then that's my luck. You know, I'm just going to go home. Well, that lasted for about 3 minutes. And all of a sudden I hear the guy again. But this time he goes, I told you, get the hell out of here. That's when I kind of snapped a little bit. I turned around and I'm like, this is a public sidewalk. You can't tell me to leave from here. And I could see him get frustrated. He was getting more and more mad. He's like, the band requested that nobody hangs out around here. And I go, yeah, that's why you have this fence. Nobody's going to go on the fence. I'm not in the fence. I'm standing right here. I'm perfectly in the rights to stand here as long as I want to. And I thought about it. I'm like, I can't imagine Derek Trucks going, I don't want anyone around when I go outside. You know, what band wouldn't want like their fans waving at them as they leave? I just don't get that. And he goes, plus, when everybody leaves after the show, they're all going to stand around too because you're standing around. And I thought, that doesn't make sense. So I'm like, you know what? No, they're not. They want to go home. They just watched an entire concert, you know? Just because I don't have a life doesn't mean they don't have a life. And he's like, they're just going to copy what you're doing. And I go, no, I don't think so. I think they're going to avoid me because they're probably going to think I'm going to ask them for money or something like that. So you have no worries about this. This makes no sense why you're telling me to leave right now. And then he looked really frustrated, like he was running out of things to say. He's like, well, I'm going to go get the cops then. I'm like, go ahead. And by the way, do you work for the band or do you work for the armory? What's your thing? He's like, I work for both of them. And he was giving off this real Dwight Schrute energy, which I cannot stand. If you watch my other videos, I'm completely cool with security, with cops, with all the authority figures as long as they're cool. Once they get all macho man on me and they think they have the right to just treat you like a second-class citizen just because they're wearing a t-shirt that says security, that's when my fuse gets extremely short. So in a last-ditch effort to make me leave, he started to come up to me, almost like he was going to do something, and I just stood my ground. You know, there's a fence between us. I'm not afraid. Even if he did jump the fence, what's he going to do? There's cops sitting there. I'm in the right. I'm in public space, you know, the sidewalk. So he goes up to the cops and he talks to him for like 30 seconds, and it was weird. And I just stood there. I'm like, I don't care. By the way, I better get my phone out so I can record this just in case anything goes down. You know, with Minneapolis police, I don't exactly have the best reputation at this moment, but I've met really, really great cops. I've met a few that aren't so great. I'll just put it that way. So eventually the security guy kind of waddles back to his station and he kind of disappears, you know. I'm like, oh, he must be ashamed that he had to tattle on me. You know, it's so weird. So then it takes about a minute, but then the cop car door opens slowly. And this poor cop comes out and he's taking his time. It's like this is the last thing he wants to do. He comes up to me real slowly. He's really cool. You know, he's not aggressive at all. And he goes, hey, man. Is there any way you could just like go across the street? And the look in his eyes broke my heart because I'm like, you know what? I could tell that this guy has seen some shit in his day, but I still had one more question. I'm like, just tell me something. Am I allowed to stand here? You know, the perimeter, obviously I can't go in, but am I legally in my rights to stand here? And he goes, yes. And he kind of looks over at the security guy real quick. He's like, yes, but can you please just go across the street? And the last thing I wanted to do was give this cop any grief. You know what I mean? They go through enough. They don't need some weirdo just kind of hanging out trying to get an autograph on his SG pickguard. So I conceded because I'm like, you know what? I easily give in to people that are cool like that they're not trying to strong arm you. They just want to do their job. And to tell you the truth, if this security guard right away came up to me in the beginning and was just like, hey man, I know you're allowed to stand here, but the band requested that we clear out this area. Is there any way you could stand way over there? I would have done it in a heartbeat. And people who know me personally would agree that I would have done that. I have no right to be an asshole to a guy doing his job like that. But when he comes on like he did, I feel like I have no choice. It's almost like in Back to the Future when someone calls Michael J. Fox chicken.
Nobody calls me chicken.
I just have that same thing happen in my brain. It's probably going to get me in trouble someday. So I walked to my truck and by now everybody had already left, you know, the concert venue. And I just thought, wow, that just happened. And I guess I could technically say that the Minneapolis Police Department kicked me off the premises, but that sounds badass. But when you hear the whole story, it's not nearly as cool. But overall, I love the concert. It was one of the most magical concerts. I wasn't expecting it to be that awesome. That's why I'm doing this review, that plus the security guard thing. But yeah, I was really taken to a different place. You know, everything was great. The sound was awesome. The lighting, like I said, the venue's always good. I have to give it a solid 9. It also gave me a new artist to try to explore a little bit, Margo Price, not Mango Price. And I think I could really get into her music. You know, she seems real up and coming, seems like she has a lot of years ahead of her, and it'll be interesting to see where she goes from here. And as far as my pick guard goes, it remains blank for the moment, but I'll keep trying. You never know in the future. Maybe they'll come back to town. And I don't know, I would love to get Derek on a podcast or something, and hopefully he could sign it then. That'd be great. But thank you so much, everyone, for watching this. If you've ever seen Derek Trucks play live, let me know in the comment section. It's so hard to believe that someone playing a piece of wood with metal strings on a glass slide could really transport you like it does. But that's what the masters can do, you know? Thanks again, everyone, for watching, and we'll catch you soon. Bye-bye.